dumbed down. So I want to talk about Black Mirror today. Because I put out that Bandersnatch review, I obviously have to talk about Black Mirror, but as well as it is a Black Mirror movie, interactive movie, the first thing they've done like that. So it's not a regular episode. If you don't know what Black Mirror is all about, I give you a short synopsis that it's all based around technology, and I would say that it fits into like a dystopian view of things. Focuses around technology and I guess how humans interact with that technology, whether it's contemporary technology that we actually have access to right now, or if it's future technologies that are maybe like very, very far in the future, or things that are built off of what we have now. Either way, the fact that we can think about the technologies and what they could possibly do means that we've probably got a blueprint in our minds about these things anyway. So some of the stuff hasn't been made yet. Some of it is all very contemporary that you have access to right now. But it's how humans and our cultures and stuff interact with those technologies. It is darker, which is like it's strong, and that appeals to me a lot. I've been watching it for a couple years before it was on Netflix, and I think they got it on Netflix in 2016. So it was a couple years before that my friend Alex turned me on to the show with the first episode, National Anthem. So I guess that's the other thing. If you don't know Black Mirror, the episodes, also this is a British TV show, or it started off as a British TV show, I'll say, and then we'll get into the other stuff. But it was more of like 45 minutes to an hour an episode, and the episodes don't really link up. There's no linear like story arc that happens between episodes. Every episode is like a mini movie, and it's just that episode encapsulates that theme, and that's kind of it. So that was really nice too, because I hadn't really seen anything with that format before. But like I said, this is a couple years before they put it on Netflix. So yeah. Friend showed me National Anthem, and it blew my mind. Just blew my mind. Like, all the technology in that episode is stuff that we have access to today, or, I mean, back then, I mean, however many years ago that was. Like, we had access to that stuff then, and so it was like, whoa, like, this is stuff that just could happen. This is how we, like, interact with technology. This is what the outcomes could be, and they're not very pretty, and it was just messed up, but it was so powerful. I think I've watched that episode about 5 times, which, like, I don't like rewatching things over and over again. I watch movies over and over again more than I do TV shows. But then again, this is kind of like a mini movie. It was super dark. That's not the reason, like, I mean, I definitely don't watch things in succession that fast. Like, I've seen some movies, like, a lot, because I watch it, like, every year, and I've been watching it since I was, like, a teenager or something. But I watched it so many times because I was showing people. I was like, you have to see this. Like, we got to get you on Project Free TV, and you got to see this thing. It's nuts. And so I'd seen the first episode so many times. I remember I showed my band that I was in at the time, other people that I'd met. It was so good. It was so good. And then the rest of that first season, like, I mean, there's not very many episodes in a season either, like 5 to 6, I think, or 4 to 6, depending on the season. And it was all really good. I mean, they were different than that first one, for sure, but they were all super good, well thought out, raised a lot of questions for you to ponder on and be like, wow, like, that's some heavy, it's heavy. And like I said, it's dark. And I like the realism factor, and maybe that's just because me being like a pessimist or whatever. I think like this dark element is more realistic than like a more optimistic view of where things are going. So yeah, I mean, reference points. I mean, like, if you've seen, well, I guess it's a movie too. If you've read things like 1984 or Brave New World, or things that are dystopian fiction touchstones in literature and our culture. Some of those are movies too. But yeah, that gives you, I guess, like a language in a way to think about these things a little more. And without that stuff, you still get a lot out of it, or you can get a lot out of it. But I guess the reason I wanted to make this, especially just because, one, I just love Black Mirror, so if people aren't into it, you should really be watching it. And I don't know who isn't, watching it, or who hasn't heard of it at least and given it a shot. But it was for the first 2 seasons at least, incredibly smart, well crafted, beautiful, for sure. Um, so like I said, this is going in the review section because part of it's again promoting stuff and part of it's just reviewing stuff. Again, no spoilers in this, um, but I will say that so. At the end of the second, again, this is a British TV show, so they use a lot of UK actors. I'm assuming UK writers, the director, etc. It's done in this UK style, this British style that I really like. I like British comedies. I like British dramas. I like this. This is the first thing I've seen in this genre. I love it. And then, so the end of the second season, they had an episode called White Christmas with John Hamm. And I was like, oh wow, that's different, because like usually the majority of the actors and actresses and people, I don't know them. They're so like foreign to me. Like I don't know who they are. Haven't had exposure to them that much because they're more probably doing British stuff or UK stuff. So I was like, oh, John Hamm. Well, I know John Hamm, and that was an interesting little lead in to what happened, I think. And I don't know if it was coincidental or not. Maybe I'm just going off conspiracies and whatever that I've created in my own mind. But that is a way I think that was more maybe an introduction to U.S. audiences or more North American audiences. I don't know when the deal to Netflix was thought of. So I don't know if they knew they were going to do this when they filmed that episode or not. But the third season, they had signed to Netflix for. So now that's when that happened. I think it was 2016. And that's when things took a nosedive, which is very funny to me because that's the name of the first episode of the third season. It's called Nosedive. And that episode is the worst episode possible. I don't remember the name of the actress. Now I need to look it up. Okay, so Bryce Dallas Howard, I guess is her name. Yeah. So she was the star of that episode. And I was like, what are we doing? Are we continuing this whole American thing? What's going on? I was just like, and then I made the connection like, oh, it is on Netflix now. Are we catering to an American audience? Like, is that what's happening? And I was like, okay, whatever. It's still the same show. So that episode was just brutal. It just sucked. I did not like it. I felt like it was too basic. It was a reflection, I think, of contemporary times. Where, okay, like the first episode was like, all that technology is contemporary, that stuff could happen, and so that in that way, it's a reflection of contemporary times. But this was like a reflection of what I think people who maybe are addicted to social media, or why people are addicted to social media, do the things that they do, and how they think and process things. But it was just like, the technology in there is not something that we have today, but like I just feel like we're already doing this. This isn't really providing a lot of fodder for questions or challenges. It just seemed like really basic, and it seemed like it was dumbed down a lot. So I mean, like deciding to use like more, American like actors and actresses and stuff. Like, that's not necessarily the problem. It just was like, oh, a familiar face at the end of the second season. Or, a familiar face that's starring in this, like, first episode of the third season. And then it was super dumbed down. And the worst thing about it, for me, is that the ending is, like, optimistic and happy. And I was like, whoa, that's not... That's not what I go to Black Mirror for. That's not what Black Mirror's been about for 2 seasons. It was always very, like... dark and like this and realistic and whatever, and this was like, we're ending up on this happy note. Like, what is this is like some fluffy like feel good thing now. Like, it's so stupid. Like I said, I'm not, no spoilers, but like it was just really fluffy, and I was like, that's not Black Mirror. What are you doing? So all these things, I was like, oh my goodness, now my show is ruined. Like, Netflix bought it, and now they're changing everything. They probably changed writers, and they're changing the casting, and I was just like, this is not cool at all. Hated it. Worst episode ever. Yeah. Anyway, and I just felt like, yeah, they dumbed it down for these like American audiences, and like American. I shouldn't say just American, for Canadian audiences too, for North American audiences, I guess is what I mean. But I'm not even talking about Mexico, more just like the U.S. and Canada. But yeah, it just seemed like it was way more catered to that. Fortunately, throughout that third season, the episodes did kind of go back to old form a bit. Again, that's with probably like with the casting as well as I think the writing definitely got better. So it kind of slowly got back on track. And in the fourth season, it seemed like yes, we're kind of more back on track as to where we were before. It has the same feel as it did maybe in the first two seasons. In some ways, not as dark. I think like the first episode is still probably like the most graphic in nature and what they would show and how they would show it. And I feel like the first two seasons before Netflix were still like the darkest episodes. Probably still the smartest episodes were in those first two seasons. But again, third season, the rest of the third season, other than Nosedive, and the fourth season, they slowly got back to a place where I felt comfortable, and I was like, okay, cool. I'm happy to be watching this again. I'm not dreading it. Like after that first episode of the third season, Nosedive, I was like, no, not happening. So yeah, and that leads into then what happened with Bandersnatch. So I mean that's a separate review I've already done, but I mean Black Mirror as a whole, I still think it's worth watching. I have that really heavy criticism of when they moved it to Netflix because there was a huge drop in that quality of that first episode, and that could just been this weird coincidence. But I really think they were trying to make it more palatable to these North American audiences that were watching it, and I just hated that. It was not cool. But it's just a brilliant, brilliant show. Unfortunately, a friend and I talked a while ago about, and I might have had this conversation with more than one friend, about how, like, when it blew up on Netflix, because once it got on Netflix, like, everyone was talking about it, and then, of course, I had to be the hipster. I was like, I've already been watching it for a while, because my friend had showed it to me before that, and everyone was just talking all about it. And it's one of those things that I think a lot of people like to talk about because it makes them feel smart. It's like, just there enough that simpletons can grasp onto the concepts of being like, oh, I know this is supposed to be smart, but they don't get it. So that's one thing that once it blew up and everyone was on it, it was kind of like annoying at first for people like me who had already been watching it and really appreciated it, and I would just say really got it. So it's interesting now that everyone, I mean, because the ease of access through Netflix and exposure and things, that way more people are talking about it. I mean, I think it's a good thing because those concepts are those challenges, those questions, those things. More people should be thinking about them, and that goes to this whole thing of entertainment. I guess that I talked about in Bandersnatch too. It's like, is it just entertainment? Like I guess so, but I mean, entertainment is like reading a book. But what's the difference between reading a book and studying? I mean, I love the show because of the challenges that it provides an opportunity to work through. It's just brilliant. So it's a brilliant source of entertainment for someone who wants something more conceptual, cerebral, dark, focuses around technology, dystopian futures possibly. It's super good, just super good. Again, other than that one really big misstep, and I guess Bandersnatch is the second little misstep in the whole thing. But you want to talk about that or listen to that, we'll go watch the Bandersnatch review. With that, we'll see you on another time.